Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. So I've given you several practices to work on, so I hope you're taking the time to engage in those. And what I like to do is offer you authentic practices that can make a real difference in your life and help you on the spiritual path. And then I like to present a very practical view of spirituality and awakening as well. And it's this balance that allows us to develop in a more complete and balanced manner. So I was reflecting recently on just how much courage is required to live a fully engaged life. And there's a lot of people talking about living fully engaged, and there's other shows about it and things like that. There's a lot of things out there about living fully engaged. And within many spiritual systems, they explain what that means. And it usually entails a high degree of mindfulness, a sense of awakening, and so on. This is what it means to live fully engaged. It's not just running around having a great adventure in life, but the two go hand in hand. It's when you are mindful and you are awakening that you are capable of having these grand adventures. Otherwise, everything is just pretty much status quo. It's mundane. Right? So when we speak of spirituality or living fully, the topic usually sparks warm and fuzzy feelings, doesn't it? But true spirituality, which is at the very heart of living a fully engaged life, can be very challenging. It requires an immense amount of courage. This has been coming up for me lately, along with an incredible amount of synchronistic circumstances. So I thought I'd better share what's on my mind here. Let's examine some of the ways that courage is so necessary in order to live fully engaged. The first and most obvious area of living fully engaged that requires incredible courage and fortitude is the spiritual practices themselves. Great inner strength and courage is required in order to engage authentic spiritual practices. They are certainly not for the faint of heart or the weak of mind. To maintain a sense of mindful consistency is in itself a tremendous struggle for most, let alone the things you come face to face with about yourself once you've completely become honest with yourself during your practices. When you stop all of the delusional madness and you're willing to be honest with yourself, and you're able to have a sense of mindful consistency with your practices, the things that you can end up facing can be quite difficult. But these are the things we need to address. They're the things we need to go through. We can't allow it to intimidate us. Therefore, it requires a great degree of inner strength and courage. Then they're squaring off with the ego, and this is at the heart of all spiritual practices. And today we see a lot of people stressing systems where they're saying, well, the ego's good, it's a part of me, so I would never want it to die. I got to embrace it. This is being perpetuated in order to take us in the opposite direction of true spirituality. We cannot buy into that. Any spiritual practice that's been around for hundreds or thousands of years knows full well and has, at its very core, the practices that allow the ego to die. One of the greatest battles that a human being ever engages in their life is said to be the struggle for dominance over our own mind. And in some ways, we can view this inner struggle as a battle with ourselves. It's essentially a battle between our false self and our true self. This alone is usually far more than enough to send the most eager of spiritual seekers running home to their mommy and into the arms of something like organized religion, where they can feel comfortable and not have to accept responsibility for themselves and their lives. It's far easier to remain asleep than it is to awaken. And trust me, I have witnessed this countless times. But this is why many beginning-level spiritual practices help us to develop what I have described as a warrior's spirit. We need this level of inner strength. We must become a spiritual warrior in order to proceed and progress. This gives us the courage to forge ahead and to become authentic, while regaining our sense of empowerment instead of the false sense of empowerment created by the ego, which is entitlement. If you feel particularly timid, then I would recommend seeking out something that can help you to build a bit of a warrior spirit, build some courage, even if it's in an external manner at first, like taking some sort of martial art. Martial arts allow you to establish and cultivate this sense of the warrior spirit to an incredibly high degree, and I have found that that has served me very, very well in the realm of spirituality, where I've been able to be strong enough to face, this opponent within myself. So I recommend, before engaging in real, authentic spiritual practices, that you make sure that you're developing your warrior spirit, and make sure that you're engaging in a particular practice that will help you develop your sense of inner strength, your mental resolve, and allow you to develop this necessary inner strength of a warrior. And warrior here doesn't mean that we're resisting, we're in opposition, or we're battling something necessarily. It's what we're referring to here is that we have that strength and courage. That's what is meant by warrior. And I've described this in previous episodes, so you can access that if you'd like a more in-depth description of it. I also cover this in my book, Expansion Mastery. And we also must realize that, yes, once we get past some certain areas in our spiritual practices, then things start to feel good. It starts to become a little bit easier. So it isn't that every single thing we do is going to be a struggle, but there are those things that will come up. And we are trying to prevent things like external distractions, trying to prevent the ego from interfering. All of these things are happening that require a deep sense of inner strength. But that shouldn't deter us. We just need to be prepared, and I think far too many people go into this with a new agey type of feel where they're going to sit there and bliss out, and they think that's something real, or they engage in illicit drugs while they do it, and they think the trip is real, and they think they're all awakened, and this couldn't be farther from the truth. So I like to prepare people for it, so then when they go in and they start engaging real practices and they come face to face with some of these more difficult aspects of spirituality, they're well prepared for it. You now will be well prepared for it. It won't take you by surprise. So that's sort of the spiritual view of this. Let's look at it from a practical standpoint. So this is another typically overlooked area of living a fully engaged life. And it is that of escaping the grand illusion fabricated for the mindless masses. It is the matrix that has been systematically structured and put into place. When you start to awaken, you start to live more fully, more mindfully, it requires an extreme amount of courage, because you have to be willing to step outside of the normal herd behavior and see reality as it truly is. And trust me, this is far more difficult than anything you're going to engage in the practices. This requires us to make some hard life choices, but they must be made, or no further progress can be accomplished. As a Zen master might say, we must be capable of taking our ox to the market. From the spiritual perspective, we ourselves through our own mental delusion, create a disconnect with reality. But we also have to understand that there has been an illusion, an external illusion, placed in front of us for hundreds of years. It's a system, really, a system designed to control and enslave the masses. There are more things in the world that are purposefully designed to keep us connected to this matrix than we even understand. But we can't escape. We can unplug. We can unplug from this illusory matrix of lies and deception, of false reality, which is mostly all the things that we end up currently accepting as living a normal life. The version of life that is considered normal has been fabricated. It is not real. But most people have been trained to be good boys and girls and follow the program so they don't get into trouble. But this is not living, and it's certainly the farthest thing from living a fully engaged life. At this point in time, I probably shouldn't even be going into this point, but it's the truth. We must see through this artificial matrix in order to attain the freedom that will allow us to see through the lies and peer upon the truth, to be free from the social construct of their matrix, thereby allowing us to live the life we were meant to live. In order to know this level of true freedom, which can only be experienced by those who have attained a high degree of mindfulness or are well on their way to being awakened, which is usually one and the same, we must be willing to see the truth. We must be ready and we must be willing to see the truth. Most people will say that they are, but in reality they aren't because they're still ruled by fear. Life in the Matrix is like going through life with your eyes closed, sound asleep, and there is a green screen on the inside of your eyelids with a movie playing 24 hours a day. And that movie you have no control over. This movie is dictated by the unconscious mental activity and the ego. And then out in front of us is yet another green screen. And upon this green screen, there is a movie playing. And this is a movie that is operated by those in power, those who created this construct for us, this systematic social structure. And we all end up believing that the movie playing on the screen is real life. But it's not. So this is what I have referred to in the past as having multiple layers of false reality to go through. We have to go through and see through the false reality of the delusions that our ego and mind create. We have to see through the external illusions that are being created for us by those in power. And then it is perpetuated mindlessly by everyone who buys into it, everyone who thinks it's real, that thinks it's truth, that thinks it's normal, they buy into it and then they themselves start to perpetuate it, mindlessly spreading it like a virus from one generation to another. The artificial, fabricated movie that is playing there is an illusion that they want us all to mindlessly accept as reality. We should never question it, because if you do, you're going to get in trouble. And we need to just remain complacent and continue to sleepwalk through life in a mental haze as their movie plays out, as well as our own movie playing out. We must be strong enough. We must possess the inner strength of a warrior in order to look beyond the delusion and the illusion and see what has been falsely placed in front of us as normal life. Because normal life is nothing more than sleepwalking until our time is up. In order to escape the matrix, we always hear about the need to take the red pill instead of the blue pill. And In the movie, that's what they talk about, and it's a literal pill in the movie. But what we need to realize is, what is the red pill? The red pill is not simply listening to alternative news or listening to other people talk and waking up and realizing that, this is all fake. No, the real red pill, what the real red pill is the spiritual practices. We need to engage the spiritual practices. Remember, it comes from the inside out. We need to correct the mind and allow the ego to dissolve so we can allow these delusions to resolve and start to wake up. And it's that ability to wake up and no longer being a victim of our own delusions that allows us then to start to see through the external illusions that have been placed in front of us. It's sort of a dual awakening process. The real red pill, or authentic spiritual practices, allow us to open our eyes and see what real life looks like. In order to live fully engaged, we must be willing to tear through the massive movie screen that plays the movie those in power want us to believe is reality. We need to rip this screen down and see what's on the other side. That takes tremendous courage. We need to shake off this sleep state and see reality. This can be the most difficult thing you've ever done because it requires tremendous amounts of courage. Think about it. You can never become awakened through participating in the usual New Age spirituality silliness. It was created to take people into a place where no real enlightenment, transformation could ever occur. But it does serve to entertain the immaturity of the ego, doesn't it? As long as you spend your time and money chasing crystals, cards, and other worldly little trinkets in the hopes that these things can make you feel better, you are not free. You can never become wealthy as long as you're enslaved in their financial system. The game is rigged, and it's rigged in their favor, not yours. And they do this because they know that wealth offers freedom. There is a certain sense of freedom that comes with money, and this cannot be denied. I'm not talking about spiritual freedom here. We're talking about things in real life and in practical reality. We're talking about all of the things that are in the illusion. And life is an illusion as it is, let alone making it an externally fabricated, false environment that shapes our mind in a way that causes us to surrender to the enslavement of this system. I mean, most of these things you've probably already had thoughts about, already formed an opinion on, right? You go by and you see somebody playing with tarot cards or spinning crystals or something, right? And you laugh to yourself thinking just how silly that is and how pointless it is. That's true. It is. You also have thoughts go through your head about, I just can't seem to get ahead. I just can't seem to get ahead. No matter what I do, I can't seem to get ahead. Do you understand that's because the game is rigged that way? You're not meant to get ahead. You're not supposed to be able to. You have to get outside of their financial system in order to do that. In another area of this illusion, we have to understand that we can never see the truth. We can never live fully engaged when we are constantly surrendering ourselves to the entertainment that is fed to us and the distractions constantly bombarding us. Entertainment and distractions are all forms of control. They are misdirection that prevent our freedom. Are you getting the idea yet? Look at all the things around us, like all the fake news spreading political agendas and lies in order to shape the perception and beliefs of the masses. We can't trust anything in the media right now, either side. And I know this is the last thing anybody wants to hear about, but we have to understand that this is part of the illusion. They're using this to control the minds of the masses. We cannot succumb to this. We have to be outside of it. And then we can see how the same is done with competitive sports. Competitive sports has become a religion, especially here in the United States, but many other countries as well. Yet, Well, these people are distracted watching all the different types of competitive sports. And have you noticed how many different weird, stupid sports are being invented in every single country around the world right now? Are we truly that bored as a species? Have we truly become that bored that we have nothing better to do with ourselves than make up all these ridiculous types of sports and ways to compete with one another? Do you understand? This feeds the ego. This is a huge problem. When your mind is so consumed with watching sports and knowing all the stats and all of that stuff, you might as well be under hypnosis, because you surely are not free. Sports have a tendency to control our thoughts and certainly our emotions, just like religion. They consume your mind and inflate your ego to unsustainable levels, all things that prevent you from engaging in spiritual practices, not to mention participating in your actual life. But as long as the mind is filled with those statistics and we're all worked up about who won and who lost, we're not looking at reality at all, are we? And we're certainly not living a fully engaged life. We're being controlled, and many people willfully surrender to this. They willfully surrender their mind, their time, their money, and even their lives. Look at the current obsession among many millennials to playing games. Board games, video games, even LARP, right? I didn't even know what that was until just the other day. Live action role playing, really? These are people in their 20s and 30s even. These are things that we did as small children, not adults. But it is the ego that is infantile, that is immature. But again, have we been so consumed by boredom that we think this is living? This is a problem, folks. Do I need to even get into the illusion of organized religion? It's one of the greatest illusions of all. Yet another system, yet another layer in the system put in place to control the masses through belief. There are several layers of systematic structure in place to control your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions. It's all a game that is designed to disempower the masses and empower the few. Then we have the indoctrination-based education system. This is another layer, right? Look at how they're dumbing everyone down, brainwashing them through media, through education, and continuing to dehumanize us all. And I'm going to say this, never, ever, ever surrender your humanity. Look around. All you have to do is take a look at any news source right now, and you can see how the dehumanization is happening. This is by design, folks. All you have to do is a little research, and you can see that this is part of a plan that they have in place. This is the next layer that they're putting on this structure. And this will be extremely obvious to you by now. If you find yourself a bit confused by what I'm saying or unsure of its truth, then I'd highly caution you, because you are most likely plugged into the insanity of the inverted, twisted logic that's being shoved down everyone's throats right now. Just look around at all the ways these things are shaping your thoughts and perception. I'm going to say with some degree of confidence here that I highly suspect that there's been no other time in human history where the illusion has become so powerful and so insane. Do you understand that while you're plugged into the matrix, you are not in control of your thoughts, your emotions, your life? You are not free. The system that has been created and installed, this matrix, if you will, is there to control all of that stuff for you. It shapes your thoughts, your perceptions, your emotions, every facet of your life. It is designed to help you go deeper into the sleep state. It controls what you think about, how you feel about it, but we can unplug. We can leave this. We can escape the matrix. And it's not even as difficult as it made it look in that movie, right? We can do this. We can step outside of all of this. We can begin to think for ourselves. We can see for ourselves. We have to shake this off. Let's take a moment here and look at the term awakening, right? Let's just look at this for a moment in kind of a fun and especially truthful way. When we're of ordinary mind, when we haven't achieved any degree of mindfulness or awakening, we are fully plugged into the matrix. You can't help it. You're plugged in. You're still asleep. You're in a deep haze. And you think it's reality. You think everything that's going on out here is reality. But it's nothing more than a movie playing on the inside of your eyelids. It's a dream state where you're kept in this state of drowsiness where you can't quite put your finger on reality, and you mindlessly go through the motions that coincide with the movie that's playing on the outside. This is why the term awakening is used. It's when we awaken from this dream state, we stop buying into the false narrative of the movie and unplug from the matrix. We open our eyes and the movie goes away. All you have to do is open your eyes and you unplug from the matrix. Then you're capable of seeing reality as it truly is, not as it's forced upon you, not as others want you to believe it is, not as the way you want it to be, but as it truly is. This is when you've experienced real freedom, and it's at that moment that you're capable of living a fully engaged life. When you no longer succumb to the movie that's playing on the inside of your eyelids, perpetuated by your own mind, your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind, your ego, all of that. When you've gotten past that, and then you've gotten past the external movie screen that those who run things in the world place in front of us constantly, then you are capable of knowing true freedom and living fully engaged. The question is this: do you have the courage, do you have the inner strength to wake up and unplug yourself from the matrix? It all begins with spiritual practices that allow us to cultivate courage, to become a spiritual warrior, and to begin to awaken from our own delusionary dream. From there, it's much easier to see exactly what's going on out in the world, to understand the illusion. And this illusion, this outer illusion, is twofold, because all of life is just an illusion as it is from a spiritual perspective. But then from a practical, physical reality perspective, we see that there's another false narrative being forced on us, another illusion that's being put into place. It's been in place for hundreds of years, longer than any of us on the planet have been here. So we have to be able to see through that too. And when we can do that, that's when we truly awaken. That's when we are truly free. And that's when we are living a fully engaged life. This is what it is to be fully engaged. And this sense of freedom, my friends, is one that just must be experienced. It is incredibly empowering. And now is the time that this consciousness shift is happening. So it may be just coincidence, or it may be one of those other synchronistic circumstances I've been experiencing, but now is the time when the powers that be are forcing this fake narrative and all these other things on us more than ever before, right? You know what I'm talking about. You're feeling it. You know what I mean. It's intensifying greatly right now. And there's a reason. The reason is because right now is when the shift is happening. And everything is in place to try to prevent that from taking place. I urge you not to fall for it. I urge you to become more steadfast than ever, more courageous than you've ever been in your life, and engage those spiritual practices, authentic spiritual practices. Become mindful and awaken and see the truth and experience real freedom. Remember, think for yourself. make sure to visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. You can grab the Appreciation Mastery program there, the Breath Bridge program, or you can get a copy of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life, signed personally to you. And make sure to give us all the likes and thumbs up and things on social media, but most importantly, share these podcasts. Make sure that we are sharing the truth and we are helping the consciousness shift to gain momentum. Till next week, my friends, I wish you the very best in all of your practices, in your ability to see through the delusion and illusion so you can see truth for yourself and enjoy your fully engaged life. Take care, my friends.